that you've worked hard with over the last year to sort of get established and get over. Fuck them. Send them. And basically, we all sat at home doing nothing. And I went through that same cycle, God knows how many times. Like, they basically went, who are you? You haven't proved yourself to me. You haven't worked for me in the past. Like, so what am I supposed to do with you? And it was like this constant, and I had the same thing with Richard, you know what I mean? I had this, and like, the only person who's come in the new, like, in the few regime changes I've been around for, the only person who didn't do that was Big, who's running things now. Like, he's the only guy who came in and said, I've been watching you, like, while I've been working at WWE, and, like, I'm really excited to work with you, and I think that you're going to be great, blah, blah, blah. Everyone else came in, but just kind of like, hi, who are you? It was like, it was so disrespectful to all, not just me, but to all the town, because they basically said, we're too good to watch the show, but we'll get paid to come and run it, and and that was totally their MO, and it was, 2010, my deal, like I'd unfortunately, I had signed a new deal that was much more secure. Like I'd pushed for much more security as far as like, payment structure and stuff like that, as opposed to, like most pro wrestling contracts are very, very much like, don't go to work, don't get paid. And I just sort of said, if you want to keep me around, like, I'm not confident that you're going to do that much for me, so I want guaranteed money and, and that kind of thing. And we pushed for all that. And I'd already, agreed to do it and relocated and stuff like that. And then,
was there any interest from any other companies, Nick?
Obviously I have to be careful about what I can't say, but there were some conversations, yeah. I mean, at the time, like, I was still only, 23? And I do remember thinking, like, I don't know that, it didn't feel right. There was some emails and some phone conversations, but there was, it just didn't, there wasn't enough of a definitive, and plus, like, we were almost done with the deal. It was more a situation where, like, I wanted more of a sort of assurance that I was going to get used, because I wanted to keep improving first, before I anything like that. And I do remember asking for my release once. Like, I did ask for my release with TNA once, and that was basically when they were, that was around that time that Hogan and that showed up, just because I was like, I don't think that they don't have any plans for me, so maybe the time is right to just kind of, they just let Daivari go, and he was like my best friend, and, and he'd sort of said the same thing. He was like, I think they've clearly got the people they want to use and the people they don't, and, like, if you ain't one of them, all you're going to do is kind of rot. And I said, yeah, I think, and it's funny to think that I had that mindset then, compared to where I am now, but, like, I do remember sort of asking for that, and it completely, like, blindsided Dixie. She was like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean? And I said, so what do you, I said, like, well, look what's happened. They haven't done anything with me, and blah, blah, blah. And, like, it was a difficult sort of period there for about a year and a half, like, just showing up and, like, really feeling like invisible. That's probably the worst feeling in the world, when you've sort of improved a lot, and you've gone, like, and you've got used to sort of being part of a show and being sort of, featured and, like, earning your spot and everything, and then just, like, showing up and, like, wanting more than anything for the people who are, are controlling destiny, just to even, like, notice you, and then just completely blanking you and ignoring you. And that's what, like, Eric would do, and, like, Hogan, and, I have a lot on their plate. They did. Do you know what I mean? But I just remember showing up, like, week after week, and just them, I could have not shown up, and no one would have noticed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And that,
you mean my visions of Hogan being the nicest man in the world are wrong?
No, it wasn't, like, it wasn't in a mean way. I want to make sure that people understand that. It wasn't, it wasn't like they were, it wasn't like they thought they were too good or anything. It was just like, they just didn't.
I understand.
Yeah. And I do remember, like, having one big, like, blow up with Eric, and being, like, finally just going, like, you know, if you want to keep me as a talent, then fine. If not, go and tell them, you know, go and tell Dixie and them that you know that you don't want me around, and I'll go get my fucking release. And he was like, he goes, all right, fine. You know, you want to know what you want to know why I'm not using you? Fine, here it is. And he cut this promo on me about how like he'd read this one interview I'd given somewhere, sometime or other, where someone had said, "Would you go to WWE?" And I'd said, "Sure, if I wasn't under contract and they offered me a deal, of course." And
the obvious, yeah.
He took that to be this like, you know, he's got this pathological like sort of, I don't know what it is, but he's got this like this real like deep pathological urge and this need to sort of to like best them, and it's just it's strange. I don't get it. You know what I mean? And obviously that was, you know, that's reality. You know, we're independent contractors, and like we have to go and work somewhere, and it was like, and you know, it took that to mean that this, you know, that, and I just thought, like, first of all, that's so ironic coming from Eric, who had said that he'd never worked for TNA, and then, you know, and then secondly, like, just so outrageous that he didn't. I said, why didn't you just come and talk to me? Why didn't you just come and say, hey, what's up with this interview you just gave? Don't say stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, but like at the time, it was just more proof of the fact that they weren't paying attention to anything I was doing, because that's the one thing that he picked up on in the whole interview, you know.
Yeah.
I said, all right, cool, well, and I said, I've been here, you know, longer than you, so, you know, maybe you should have just made a point to, you know, watch what I was doing and all the rest of it and give me a shot, you know. And I will, you know, in fairness, after that, I guess, like, I do remember, like, the Hebners coming up to me, Earl and Brian, and being like, man, like, what did you say to Eric today? And I said, well, you know, I didn't really say too much about it. I just gave him a brief outline. I said, well, it was a discussion.
Yeah.
And they said, because he was just in the meeting putting you over huge, you know, he was just saying like something with him, and I think that he's got balls, and he should, you know, and we should do this and blah blah blah, and like, you know, like what we've been trying to do with him is not like who he is, because that was when they were like doing stuff with me and Nigel, and then like Nigel had to leave because of his thing and all that, and it was like, then I was sort of back floating again, and that was about the time where I just sort of lost it, and then like, and that was when he started saying, you know, this person that we're trying to get him to be, like, that's not who he is at all in real life, and like, you know, he's articulate, and he's like smart, and he's like, you know, he's hungry and blah blah blah, like we should just, you know, let him do more of that and blah blah blah, like, rather than try to have him be this like suave, like debonair kind of womanizer character, which it was sort of attempting to do at the time. And that was sort of where a little seed was planted. And then they put me and together, and it was because, like, at the time it was very transitional. It was like Russo was still there, but he was losing power. Like, he was still writing the majority of the show, but then stuff would have to go through Bruce Pritchard, and it would have to go through Eric, and like, you know, no one really knew who had the final say. It was very confusing, and stuff was, you know, very like churned is the word I would use to describe it. Like, you'd sort of, an idea would start in one place and it would end somewhere completely different. And I just remember being like showing up there and them doing like, oh, we're doing this like random tag team tournament thing, you know, and they were, it's you and Samoa. I remember thinking like, oh, that's cool. Like, so I was a big fan of Joe. And then I said, so what's the deal then? And they said, oh, you and Joe are winning, you know, and you're going to go on and on. And I said, so what's the like, I mean, and Russo, in typical Russo fashion, goes, well, bro, you guys are always complaining. You and Joe are always pissed off, so we figured you'd be pissed off together. You know, and it was like, in this sort of way of saying, like, you know, it was like, he sort of said without saying it, he basically said, like, we'll put you two together because we know it won't work, and then we can, you know, it's like, go ahead and see if you can make some chicken salad out of chicken shit. Which we
which you did. It did work.
And like we did, and like, because at the time I was getting ready to go to India for Ring King, because like Jeff had called me and said like, I want you as part of this. You know, you're being really underused, and like I'm a big fan of yours, and I think that you've got a huge future and a big upside. So like, you know, come and do this India thing for me. Like, TNA have already said you can come and do it, and blah, 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 like, come and do that, and I want to, you know, really use you well over there and give you a chance to really, like, give you the ball so you can run with it and all this kind of stuff. So I was excited about that, and then they did me and Joe, and then India thing, and like from there, like that kind of, I got like a, I felt like I had sort of been recharged. Do you know what I mean? It was like after that, I sort of came back and went, okay, well, I got my confidence back and just sort of went, all right, now we can, like, whatever happens, I know that like I've done everything I can do to, to make everything they've given me work, and if they don't do anything now, then like I'll just leave and see what options I have. But then after that, everything kind of grew exponentially after that.
Obviously, things kicked off for you big time. You start getting put in angles and in teams with the likes of Kurt Angle and Sting. Did you finally feel like you deserved to be in that spot?
Yeah, no, I did. Like ever since the promo that like when me and Joe had in Wembley when we were a tag team, that was right after we'd been to India actually. Like I came straight from India straight to Wembley for TV, and me and Joe did that promo, and they pretty much said like, you and Joe aren't really heels or baby faces. Like you're just kind of mowing through everyone. So we don't care if you go out and do a babyface promo. I said, okay, great. And I knew at the time, like, Hogan still, like, he wasn't completely sold on me. He was kind of like, And I think it was because he hadn't really seen me connect yet. So I just went, all right, fine. I'm going to go out and cut the most babyface promo I can think of. And then me and Joe went out there and I did that. I did the This Is England promo and all that. And, and I think after that was, like, when a sort of a light got turned on in, like, Hulk's mind and a few others and stuff like that. And then... like I think, and then all through 2012, me and Joe, like we tagged for a little longer, then we feuded, then I took the time off to go and do Panto, because...
That's a very funny line.
I know, it seems strange, but it was tactical on my part. I'll tell you why, because December and January are notoriously quiet normally, TV and house show wise. I could see the sort of them, like they had a tendency back then, and this was like Bruce was still there at the time, and I knew Bruce didn't like me. They had a tendency to kind of get bored of stuff, and I could see that they thought that like me and Joe had run its course, and so that they had us turn on each other and feuding over the TV title, and it was kind of like. Again, like I don't think they expected me and Joe to have good matches, and then when we did, it kind of. And again, this was I have to point out that this was still under the Bischoff and Bruce Pritchard and Hogan regime and stuff, and I could see that like this kind of I could see the light dimming a little bit on the whole thing, and so when I got offered Aladdin, I sort of it was in the summertime, and the money was great, and I sort of looked at it and I went, all I really need off is, that means like they could write me out for December and January and I could come back at the UK tour. So that's what I went to Bruce with and said, hey, like, I was wondering if I could have December and January off for an acting gig. I can do media and all the rest of it while I'm over there. You can write me out of the show, and at the time, like, they were, the reason that they were starting to fade off on, like, me and Joe and all that stuff was because they had aces and eights, and that was everything.
A great success.
And so then I just sort of looked at it and went, it'd be great for me to have the time off, like, good for my body and everything, like, it's good money, and rather than be like used as sort of cannon fodder for aces and eights for 2 months, I could be written off TV and then come back at the UK tour, and then sort of then have a return that actually was meaningful and stuff like that. So it was a tactical decision on my part. It was, it wasn't like I just went, oh, I'll just take 2 months off for no reason. Like I wouldn't do it now,
Is there anybody, Nick? Sorry, carry on.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you've been over and you've wrestled that you've just come out of the ring with and you've just thought, that guy is head and shoulders above anybody I've ever wrestled?
Yeah, there's Bobby Roode. He's so smooth and just so like this his nuances and he's so commanding of the space. Joe is like phenomenally good. I remember I think a lot of people with Joe at first, they don't